tough for us men to maybe be like, oh, I don't have problems. I can handle my own problems. But no, man, like there's nothing bad that comes out of talking to people about what you got going on. And if you can get yourself to do it, you'll be thankful you did. You may not agree with whoever you're talking to. And that's fine. You can work with your spouse or even as an individual to find someone you like. But man, it's powerful and you'll grow from it.
Every single individual has a story to tell, and they're great stories that need to be heard.
I want every listener to know they have the ability to change the world.
Okay. I'll cut that out earlier. Welcome to the 1720 Podcast.
What's up, Mile Movers? Welcome back to the 1720 Podcast. Last week, we spent a lot of time talking about YCC, Young Constructors Council. This week, before we announce our guests, I want to give a pitch for Executive Development Partners. So that's EDP. And that's kind of that bridge between YCC and the board with Texo. And EDP is a narrowed down group. It's 30 to 40 middle management and up, or people aspiring to be in that leadership position someday. And it's kind of a leadership group where you get to know like-minded people and get professionally poured into each month. Both Stewie and I went through the inaugural year 2 years ago.
Yeah.
It was an amazing experience, and applications for that, I believe, come out September 5th. So EDP, if you're kind of lost coming out of the YCC and don't know where to serve next, that's probably the spot you want to go. And
it was like the incantation of trying to figure out how to bridge. You said it a little bit, but bridge, like when people age out of the YCC, they're like, well, what do I do for the next 15 years before I catch some eligibility for a board spot? And so trying to bridge that. But also I would say it's the funniest moment where we had done our, remember we did our personality surveys?
Yeah.
And for the first time, it all made sense because I was like, well, line up from whatever to whatever. And on every one, you were on the complete opposite end of every spectrum. I was like, oh, this makes sense now.
That explains it.
That
checks out.
Yeah. Story checks out.
And that was the January retreat. And that alone paid the fee for us. Our light bulb moment of why we work so well together and the frustrations. It kind of smashed both that kind of level things out.
Yeah, for sure. So check it out if you guys aren't. We did YCC big last week, but EDP big this week. And I'll link to the application down below. So check that out for sure.
All right. The guest this week, long awaited Mr. Danny Mignano, joining us today. Good friend of mine. He has a really good story and some tips and tricks for all of us. But thanks for joining us, Mr. Danny.
Pleasure is mine, fellas. Really honored to be here, humbled. It's been cool to see your journey the last 2 years. And I'm Danny Mignano, Business Development Director at McCarthy Building Companies. I'm a learner. The day you stop learning is the day you start dying. I've got 2 kids, so proud father of 2. Jack, 8-year-old boy, just started 3rd grade. Tonight, he's testing for his green belt in Taekwondo, so it's a big deal for him. Sloane's my 7-year-old daughter, 2nd grade, silly, sweet. So being a father's a big deal for me. I've got a wonderful girlfriend, beautiful Jen, brings me a lot of peace and support. We'll talk about family dynamics here at some point, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Other than that, I'm a pretty basic 37-year-old guy. I'm really into staying fit. I think that's a big deal for more than just your physical health, but mental health, emotional health. I'm all about having unique experiences. So coming on a podcast might be a good example about that. And big on structure.
How so? What do you mean by that?
Habits.
Yeah.
I mean, I take a lot of examples from Kevin here. He sets the tone, as we all know, with that. But early mornings, meditation, yoga, journaling, learn a language or 2 if you can. I'm not there yet, but I think it's really important to be productive with whatever time you have.
Yeah, for sure.
168 hours in a week, Stewart.
Familiar with how many of them I'm wasting.
Yeah. So it's important to make good decisions about how you spend those.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that you said in the spiel that Jen brings, you peace, because you're one of the most calm, level-headed people I've ever met. So there is probably a part of you that I don't even see sometimes that, she's able to level you down when you're guard's down type of thing.
Well, I don't think I have a whole lot of spastic moments, but I do say
challenge accepted.
Yeah, let's do it. we all have partners that we look for and to bring you that kind of support. And if they're not bringing you peace, they're probably not worth having around.
Yeah. Amen to that. And I said at the beginning, long awaited. So, and we teased this last week, and I say long awaited because you and I, we talk every day pretty much, get to see each other often. We kind of intentionally schedule like quarterly check-ins and all that sort of stuff because we're all on this almost masochistic, like deep dive to just get better, strip ourselves down to the bones. But you ended up filling out the Mountain Movers goal achieving worksheet, and I'm reviewing it, and I look down and I see in stretch goal be a guest on the 1720 podcast. And this was, quite a while ago. And I sent it to Stewart, and Stewart was like, well, I don't understand why that's a stretch goal. He can come on tomorrow. Like thinking like it's on us to allow you, but you had to get mentally prepared for that moment, and that moment has arrived. And so I'll tee that up to you. What did that moment look like?
Well, yeah, first of all, I'm going to do a much better job filling out my sheet next year. But it's a stretch goal for me because I think you have these plans for yourself on how things will develop in your life, right? Yeah. Pretty relatable. And for me, we'll talk about Remodeled Man at some point today, but I pictured that being a little bit further along before I come out and talk about it to all of our peers in the industry. And I was at church a couple Saturdays ago, and the gospel of that mass was Matthew 17 verses 14 through 22. Mm-hmm. And of course I look at my goal sheet frequently, and that one hasn't been checked off yet. It's August. And Kevo and I worked out at the gym a few weeks before, and he's like, you have an open door here.
Yeah.
I'm just going to throw something on your calendar in August, and we're going to figure that out, and you're going to have to deal with it. And I was like, yeah, cool, man. And when this gospel comes out, I'm like, well, look, this is one of those aha moments. Like, you just got to do it.
Yeah.
So here we are.
I remember you sending me a screenshot and you said, game on, there's no more waiting.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I sent that to you. Like, check this out.
Yeah. I don't know if you sent it or we talked about it. We definitely, like, that message was conveyed, and I was like, done, sign it up. Here's the dates. Let's figure out how to get it going. So
yeah.
There you go, man.
Well, thanks again. It's cool to be your guest.
We've been long awaited, like Kevin said, long awaited. So tell us, you kind of know the format here, and listeners are like, okay, I know what the next question is, but, tell us a come up story, man. Where's home? Where'd you grow up? Tell us a bit about that. Set the stage for us.
Yeah, let's do it. I am a Corpus Christian. I grew up in Corpus Christi, had a really cool childhood, grew up in North Padre Island. So my backyard was a canal. My folks were big sailors. Had every opportunity to be successful. My parents were great. I have one little sister, played hoops, ran track, had a really close group of dudes in high school that were all really positive influences. Didn't really get into, drinking or any of that stuff, till well later in life, which I'm thankful for. And, fun fact about Corpus Christi, you guys know Selena.
Yes.
Rest in peace. She's a big deal in Corpus.
Oh, yeah.
She was more or less my first crush. And so it was a travesty when she was murdered at the age of 23. There's a story I like to tell to some folks that as I get to know them a little bit, but we'll lay it out here on the podcast now.
For all your closest friends.
Yeah, all your closest friends here. Yeah.
So when I was 9, I was playing like t-ball, and it was me and my best friend, and there might have been one other white kid on the team. This is South Texas, right?
Yeah,
so most of the team's Hispanic, and this was a Friday afternoon, and we must have been in, I don't know, the 5th inning, middle of the game, when one of our teammates' moms rushes into the dugout and says, "Pablo, Salina, she's dead. We have to go now." And that just made my jaw drop. Like, what is this lady doing? We're down 3 runs here. Come on, keep
playing ball.
Composure, lady.
Composure.
But yeah, so I didn't realize how big a deal Selena was until she died. I think that goes for a lot of these artists, right? They get their legacy grows big. But yeah, big deal down in Corpus. And,
I don't think of Selena as being like a cultural icon. I know it was, right? I thought of Selena even at the time, like, she's a musician. Hey, songs, right? But after, like, to your point, after she passed, like, everybody's like, oh no, and starts telling stories about how much she means and all this. Wow, I had no idea. And you're right. I mean, isn't there like there's a Selena statue like in Corpus, like
on the bayfront,
on the bay, yeah,
on the bayfront. There's always flowers around her feet.
Is that where she's from?
Jennifer? Yes,
Okay.
Yes. I mean, I think she moved around a little bit growing up, and obviously she got famous and traveled all over the place. But there's a movie made.
Mhm.
Jennifer Lopez played her in the late 90s.
Yep. Kevin, you've seen it?
Yeah, twice.
Big fan.
Big fan
Kevin.
of it.
I was wondering where these notes were going to go. Like, is Selena your sister? Like, what? Why is she a fugitive? Should we not talk about it? Got it. Now I know.
Selena in the Dugout. That's the name.
That's right.
That's what we wrote down.
That's right. I don't know that story. This is what I love about this podcast. I'm going to even learn something about you.
You never know what you're going to get here.
That's right. Curveballs.
It's
Bring it.
1720.
Yeah.
What's your race? You said you're a track kid. What's your race?
I think at the end, when it was all said and done, the 400 was my race.
Ooh, man, that's a long sprint.
It was. The 800 was the worst race,
Yes, it
in my
is.
opinion. But I did hurdles for a while, triple jump for a little bit. But the open 400, some relays,
Is that a quarter mile?
that's a quarter mile.
What's your time?
I never got under 50 seconds, but I hit 50 a few times, which in Corpus, that's competitive. You
Yeah,
run that
that's-
here, that doesn't get you the finals.
You got
You got to
you're-
run 47s and 48s in
Yeah.
DFW, I would think.
Yes. Everything here, I mean, it's just, well, that's a big ditch we won't get into, but man, all sports here, it seems like is the epicenter. And I'm sure people in Houston disagree with that, but go check out your state records and then get back with me because most of them coming out of the Metroplex. State championships, state records, all held up here. And I don't know why that's the case, but it is the case.
It's a cool place to be and grow up, and as a parent of kids with athletic endeavors, it's a wild place to navigate,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Full-time gig.
Man, and mine aren't that athletic. I don't think team sports at the moment are going to be something that they really want to pursue, but I see it with their friends already at 7 and 8. Man, it's nuts.
It is nuts.
So you had some hook 'em horns aspirations.
Yeah, so
Outside looking in.
I was a big Ricky Williams guy. My mother went to UT. My uncle went to UT. I just was all about it. And then as it came around to applying for colleges senior year, I applied to A&M and UT. This is another one of those aha moments in life, especially looking back. In Texas, at least at the time, I imagine that this is still the case. You graduate in the top 10% of high school, you get automatically admitted to at least our public schools. I graduated with a class of 365. I was number 37, meaning I was the first kid not in the top 10%. So
Math.
I thought I was
I picked up on that math.
Big
Yeah.
math guy.
Unless if they rounded up the population.
Yeah. Well,
Hard
anyways, it was assigned to me. Like, I got admitted to Texas, but I wasn't going to be in the School of Architecture. I had to go to like summer school right after graduating high school. And that would have just been something that I probably wasn't ready for, maturation wise, especially.
Yeah.
All my buddies down in Corpus were going to A&M. And even though I had a big Longhorn sticker on the back of my truck, I was like, I'll try this thing out. I got accepted to the School of Architecture there. It'll be fun to hang out with them. And it took all of one football game for me to be like, all right, this place is kind of cool.
Yeah.
And looking back, was a great 4 years. Obviously set me up for a career in construction because I went the construction science route, and the rest is history, as they say. But that was kind of my trajectory to A&M. And I don't know, I'm not a huge, gotta be careful for all my fellow Aggies out there.
Yeah.
I'm not a big Aggie. I
Yeah,
would
you're not
say
wearing the hardware.
I'm not. And that was because I lost it on the job site a few years ago. Otherwise, I probably would be wearing it. It's a great BD tool, as you know.
Yeah.
But where's I going with that?
2%er. You're a 2%er. That's where we were
2%er.
going.
2%er.
I've learned, boy, Ashley will disagree with this. Ashley's a Longhorn. She was at the game when Ricky Williams broke the all-time rushing record. So you get Longhorn love from our family. But, the Aggies always get this bit for just being like crazy, like, oh, there's always whooping and all that. Man, most of the ones I run with these days are not like that. And I don't know if something has changed or if maybe that's for the youth and not for the aged or whatever the case may be. But it's not quite the same as it
might
used
have
to be.
gotten a little watered down. I mean, the admittance now is through the roof. It's one of the biggest undergrad populations there is. So it might be just like, come on, come all. And maybe it's not like the generations and generations of Aggies that just get raised on it like myself, right? Like I'm the first Aggie in my family. And so maybe by my grandkids, there be not 2%ers if they go to A&M, but that might be part of it.
Yeah. Too many of them. That's it. Watered them all down.
Watered them down.
Yeah.
So architecture to construction science, what drew you to architecture? Was it just pick out of the sky like it was me, or did you have some aspirations beyond just nudging your buddy like, hey, what are you doing? Oh, okay, copy and paste.
Cool.
Yeah, I'd say that it was a factor of I knew I didn't have the grades to be an engineer.
Yeah.
And my mother, who at the time was working for an architecture firm, was coming home with draft paper and blueprints and cool stuff that I thought, oh, that looks pretty neat. And so maybe I'd figure that out. Well, at A&M, at least at the time, they've got more programs in their School of Architecture than they did then, but they had environmental science, landscape architecture, construction science. And so those were the three I had to pick from.
Mm-hmm.
And I really just picked one.
Yeah. Throw a dart. Here we go.
And I didn't know really what it was until I got to upper level and started doing internships and AGC commercial competition team and really seeing the business part of it. And man, that was what's up. That's when I was like, this is what I want to do. It was really cool. I remember turning down a senior trip that I planned. It was a cruise with all my buddies that I went to high school with, went to A&M with. We're going to go on a cruise for senior year, spring break, this and that. But the commercial competition team, AGC team, now Texo, we won our region, which meant that nationals was going to be over spring break.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a big decision to make. And I chose to stick with the commercial competition team because they could have gone and done fine without me. That's for sure. But I wanted to be part of that.
Yeah.
And that meant more to me long term with what I wanted to do with my life and career than to go on a booze cruise.
What's the why there? Like we identify that that's something that you wanted to do. Those are people you wanted to hang out with. That was important. But why? Like what was it about it that drew you to it? Obviously held you in it. But what is it?
Great question, Stewart.
I'm known for my great questions.
Yeah, you intellectual stimulation here. I think it's just in your gut, man. I think it was just like, this is what you should do.
Yeah.
And it was kind of a challenge for me too. I've known these guys that would have gone on this cruise trip with most of my life. I would know them just as well.
Yeah.
Right. And I still know them to the day. They're my best friends still, but
what about, okay, rewind that. What about then to the point you made initially, which was like, I knew when I started, like this was I loved doing this. I loved the construction, the business and all that sort of like, what about it? What about that? Right. Cause you hadn't had this, what to me was the actual execution and practice of it. And I love the people who were in our industry, but you hadn't even maybe made it to that realization yet as something else.
I think that's what it was though.
The
Stewart.
people.
It was because you get on these competition teams, you start working with actual companies. Construction companies that sponsor them. That's like, okay, here's the program that you and your team are going to go solve for 24 hours in the room and all that. And you get exposure there, and then you present it, and then you go on your internships, and that's really where most of us get the real deal. Like, hey, this is what it's all about. And you're looking up to some of these people that are probably like 25 or 30, right?
Yeah.
At the time, you're like, wow, these guys are really cool. I want to be like that.
They've got it figured out.
They got it figured out.
They were just voluntold they're going to do this by their boss.
Yeah. So, there's definitely the culture vibe of what we do in the AEC world, and still is.
So I've only been on the other side of the wall, right, so to speak, for a year now, but didn't appreciate the value of those internships like you were just talking about until I was at Osborne, right? And so right about the time I was starting, our interns were rolling back out. We had a guy headed back to A&M, and he caught me. I think I told you this story. He caught me on the way out and was just like, hey, I just want to say thanks for like having me here this summer and talking about how much you had learned. And I'd only been there a little bit. And I was like, yeah, but just how much you had learned and how much you appreciated it and how much like we had welcomed him in to just be part of the team and taken him and shown him stuff and taught him things and all the things you're saying. And I was like, that is pretty unique.
Sounds like a well-trained ag.
Yeah, and then he said, yes, sir, and shook my hand real firmly and then left, yeah.
As Chase Shimmick just nodded his head in appreciation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, standing over the side with this like kind of at attention, but not really.
Chase looks like an Aggie.
Man, yeah, he does.
Does he have the cell phone holder?
Oh, no.
Look at that.
No, that's a sign of an Aggie.
That's a throwback. I think that was a Parskull episode.
Oh, yeah, it was.
Someone dropped that one. I'd like that nugget, too.
Yeah. So the student competition, I've been able to, through Texo, be a judge for it. And I won't retell that story. But the cool part for those kiddos that I wonder if it's the same for you then as it is now, but they're overwhelmed by the number of opportunities from companies fighting over them, because there's trade show booths of the McCarthys of the world showing up, and that's the cream of the crop, so to speak, from every university that's competing. So they're like, hey, we're fighting over these 10 kids that are sitting there doing this hustle. And did you know at the time, like, how cream of the crop and how many opportunities you'd get because of that, leveraging that student competition? Or was it not as prominent as it is today?
I think going into it, like, this is going to give me some amount of visibility and exposure, certainly within the program.
Yeah.
My teachers, my profs or whatever, they're going to say, oh, hey, this person is showing a little bit of initiative. But I don't think I understood the magnitude of that externally with all the employers and prospective employers. But you're exactly right. It's still the hottest place to go recruiting.
Oh,
because recruiting season is upon us now, right? Yeah. All these career fairs are popping up. We go to all these schools around the country, and you're talking to anyone that will walk up to you. But if you can get a target-rich environment, like you said, of all the kids that really showed this initiative and want to be a part of this team all in one place, that's where you want to be.
Well, they're so sought after that. I remember when I was getting deeper involved in serving, I'm like, hey, we got to cattle these students. We need a visual element for all the people paying money to try and recruit. Like, blue sticker means looking, green sticker means already have a job or whatever.
It's like speed dating.
Yeah, we started welcoming in more people in addition to those students competing, just so there was value to the sponsors, to the competition, because all those all-stars were spoken for already. And then you're trying to convince them out of their internship and come with you. And it's pretty cool to see. But you didn't. Sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to build on the value of internships, where Stewart was, and you were building that bridge. It's getting younger and younger now. It's like recruiting for sports, right? I mean, we try to get freshman interns now and brainwash them so they will come back their sophomore and junior and senior year. Yeah, my new boss, Matt Trottle, is I believe he did all 3 or 4 internships with McCarthy.
Really?
And look where he is now. So.
That dude's a beast.
It's a pretty dog eat dog world out there sometimes, recruiting these kids. And
yeah,
I mean, it's a side note, but while we're on it, I'll take us there. So we were talking yesterday at the office about recruiting and how you go to these things and it's just exactly what you're saying. It's hundreds of kids and or not as many kids as there is jobs available, or whatever. And so
there's more of us.
Yeah, more of us, less. Yeah, I got backwards. But anyway, and then we were having a conversation about finding target-rich environments that are not at school. And Brian Bolden had a bunch of great examples of folks that he's met over the time that are in a job and show some initiative. And he's just like, hey, whenever you're ready to leave that and come do construction with us, and he's just feeding these other people that he sees succeeding in other areas professionally to take a career pivot, not start with us, but you did that and now pivot to us. Because we can offer something different. It's something unique and blah, blah, blah. So it's that target-rich environment. But I think from a recruiting perspective is keep your eyes open, because you might find a boot salesman that turns into your best guy in the whole entire world,
In the smaller the company, the more resourceful you have to be.
Yes.
I'm not going to be able to compete with McCarthy that has apartments, all these incentives and perks because they're a monster company. I can maybe match their dollars, but then you look at all the ads that they get and you're like, no, you should go take that internship with them.
Yeah.
So you got to be resourceful, man.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. All right. Take us. What's the next version of the story then, Danny? Take us. What are you?
I guess
Kevin just threw his hands up like I've jumped the shark here.
Well, no, the tee up is there's a common denominator. You mentioned McCarthy a couple times. And that's where you're at today. And then when you look at your track record, other than an initial false start, it seems, in the career, 15 years with McCarthy. And that's, I say common denominator because there's a lot of folks that have spent pretty much the entirety of their career there. So there's something there as a reason why. And I'd like to unpack that and talk through your journey there. But how did it all start, man?
Yeah, no, that's a great point. We're employee owned. I mean, I think that has a lot to do with it. I started my McCarthy journey on the West Coast. So after A&M, I went to work for Rudolph and Slutton, which I wouldn't imagine many people around these parts are familiar with Rudolph and Slutton. They're a GC that are just West Coast based. But in the early 90s, DPR spun off of RNS. So gotcha. Think of RNS as somewhat of a culture similar to DPR. I loved RNS. I thought it was great, but hit real hard with the economy in 08, 09. So I was there for all of 6 months before I got laid off. One of those moments in a man's life that really shapes who you are. I wouldn't say that I wish everyone goes through something like a layoff like that, but man, that really, looking back, helped me a lot in a character formation and even faith formation.
Well, pause there. Say more about that. Like,
yeah, well,
why?
look,
How?
You're a young kid, and luckily for me, I was a young kid. I had nothing to lose, right? Like you lay off someone who's 22, just left school. Like I think the biggest commitment I had at that time was like a lease on an apartment that was going to expire in a few months anyway, you know? But if that's all you know, and that was your hope and dream, that was a big U-turn that you weren't expecting, right? And so I thought I was going to be shipped back home to Texas, maybe live with mom and dad and back in Salina land. Maybe construction isn't in the cards for me. You know, everyone's getting laid off. All my buddies at A&M were getting their offers rescinded at the time. And I just kind of happened to have a resume that had 6 months of experience in estimating land on the desk of someone at McCarthy, who is a much bigger player, even to this day in California. We have 6 offices there, usually the biggest, if not number 2 in revenue in that state. And they were hiring when everyone was firing. That speaks to how diverse McCarthy is. And I got to be honest, it was kind of a rough year or two for me at McCarthy and trying to navigate what my role is there and the culture and some of that. But we've come a long ways in the last 15 years and really proud of that. And I think to your point, it's run by folks that just live and die by it. I think it's very similar to A&M in a way that from the outside in, it's kind of hard to understand. From the inside out, it's kind of hard to explain. I wouldn't say cult-ish, but it's maybe just short of that.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's a great place to be. We're really big on self-performance. We're a $6 billion contractor on our way to 16 offices around the country. We've got 3,000-ish salaried employees, 4,000 craft employees. A third of our business is healthcare. Mm-hmm. A third of our business is other vertical markets. So think higher education, hospitality, mission critical, aviation. And the last third segment of our business is what we call specialty markets. So that could be renewable energy, water, wastewater, solar, civil, parking structures. And so we're obviously pretty diverse. And I think that was a big deal for a lot of us that got hired on that 14, 15 year period ago.
What are y'all self-performing? What are y'all's big traits?
Oh, I can't wait for you to answer this question.
Is that a trick? Did I just throw myself into a bear trap on accident?
Oh, okay. No, I don't know what he meant by that either.
Okay. Oh, I do. But well, of course I do. Hit him with one of your biggest self-performs.
Well, concrete.
Oh, shocker. Yeah, as if I didn't know that answer.
Concrete for sure. But yeah, we're strategic in a lot of different places. I've mentioned civil being a segment of our business. We self-perform a lot of civil trades, so earthwork, utilities, if it makes sense. On our commercial jobs, we do some of that. We do a lot of medical equipment planning on our healthcare jobs.
Yeah.
And we're always looking for the right space to get into. And you got to be careful with that because we have trade partners and people that, you know, want to compete for our work. And if we get a reputation for doing concrete on every single job, well, that's not going to be good for business long term.
Yeah.
So we do it for best value for our clients. And we often get numbers to compete and open book and make sure that, you know, everything is on the up and up and transparent. But yeah,
we were just talking about, ironically, just this last week, talking about GCs that self-perform and what they self-perform and why they do it and how they do it. And some folks do it, get a bad rap for doing it because you're like, oh, you took my number and then you just beat it by $1 and took your own people and stuff like that. But it's an interesting, it seems to me like paradigm shift, and maybe not like happening concurrently, but this was, you know, rewind your construction career 120 years and everybody was self-performing everything. All your GCs did it all. And then fully away from it, risk transfer reasons, blah, blah, blah. And I feel like you see it more and more, like trying to vertically integrate that process as much as possible to control costs and employ more people and blah, blah, blah. So it seems like an interesting shift that is afoot, or it's been afoot for a while. It's not like y'all just started doing, you know, but it's changing landscape a little bit.
Right. And I think we're getting is like you said, more integrated delivery across our whole industry, right? So, you know, the design build piece, design as this piece, and you got owners that are a lot more savvy and come from different parts of our industry that know how things may get played with sometimes. And I think that's all great. Like, let's do more of that.
I got to see your diversification play out and be a strong hand on the COVID era. So when COVID kicked off, everybody was well aligned and performing at a high level at Collin Technical College, and we were all talking about what's next. We were all going to take each other with us to the next job, and then COVID happened, and then watched quickly y'all jump into solar panels, and a lot of those team members temporarily went there. And just kind of tying to that point earlier, in the recession 08, when most are firing, you're hiring. That's the power of having a diverse portfolio, because when something dries up, you don't just flounder. You can thrive when you diversify creatively and strategically, and give it some time to bear fruit.
That's an astute observation. I didn't know that you recognize that. We talk about it at McCarthy.
You're saying he's not a thinker?
That's the most impressive thing that I've heard. I'm just kidding. That was maybe a little
cheeky.
Go on. Yeah. But yeah, we call it like our solar pivot of 2020. It quickly became a $1 billion+ business for us, and still is. And we got to be careful how much we commit resources to that part of the business. We want to stay diverse. But yeah, that's a big part of who we are now.
I was bummed, because that team was stellar, led by Schrodel and Jeff Wagner.
Yeah.
I mean, I got to know Schrodel very well through that process, and I was like, if I could just have every single project with an operator like Schrodel, we will be successful.
Yeah.
Because you don't know who you're going to get. That's the danger. That's the danger of a large company. Like, you might know one or two really good operators or leaders or caring people, but you don't know the other 50 or 60 that are going to be behind the scenes.
Of course.
And I don't have a good insight on the rest of the McCarthy offices, but Dallas, top down, man, collective group of awesome people that view subcontractors as trade partners, are just really good people that you become friends with beyond the widget. And I'm not saying that because you're sitting here, man. There's so many friends in that Dallas operation that are just friends, man. That y'all have a really good thing going there culturally.
Well, operational excellence is one of our strategic values, and that's always going to be the case. I think you guys have talked on this podcast several times about sometimes you get big GCs that are either good in pre-con or good in operations. Maybe you don't have both, and we all strive to be, of course. But yeah, that's definitely something that we pride ourselves on, is the operational excellence side of it.
I don't want to skip over the fact that you started with McCarthy in California. But what was like the specific opportunity that home was calling your name?
Well, I wish I had a better story for it, but I think it's like so many other Californians or people that leave Texas. Like, this was cool. I enjoyed my 20s here, got married, had a couple kids, and all of a sudden I'm in a tiny little apartment, and I wanted my kids to know my grandparent or their grandparents, my kids, my parents.
Got it.
And so, yeah. And so it was like a no-brainer. And we just had Sloan, and it was 2016, 2017 when Eric and I relocated to Texas. Her parents, she's Californian, her parents, super conservative, farmers, rifles, you name it, retired, and we're like, to hell with these taxes. We're moving to Texas. And so that made our move even more simple.
Where were you in California? You may have said
Orange County.
Yeah, you're living in a thumb postage stamp size house or whatever. This place,
cool place. Love visiting, but I don't need to move there again.
Yeah. Well, welcome back 15 years ago or whatever.
Yeah. So you did various estimating and pre-con roles, and you currently sit director of business development. And I know we're going to talk about the do's and don'ts and all that sort of stuff, but man, how powerful has it been to sit in this role with 15 years experience on the widget, so to speak, on job sites. So when you go talk to somebody, you're just not a pretty face, like you're actually bringing some value and can talk the talk.
Yeah. This isn't meant to be a slight on anyone that doesn't have that type of experience, but every person that we have a BD role at McCarthy usually has worn a few hats beforehand for that reason. I think there's a certain amount of longevity and culture, and if you're going to have someone out there kind of be the face or one of the faces of your company, you want to trust with them that they know what they're talking about, right? And there's parts of me that miss pre-construction and estimating. I did 12 years there, and it was a really cool spot in the life cycle of a project to be in. And you were a big part of winning work, obviously, and setting up project for success. And so I still kind of get my hand in there in the cookie jar and mix it up with the guys in the pre-con room. But yeah, business development is a unique spot at McCarthy, especially because we're so strategic and rifle approach. We're not bidding jobs once a week. We probably have 6 to 12 opportunities a year that we go all in on.
Mm-hmm.
And we're probably doing pre-con or free-con on for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how we do it. And it's a team sport, business development, especially at McCarthy.
Yeah, you notice that, like it, and I know the regional things keep changing, right? Like, is it still all Southwest that includes Georgia, Houston?
Yeah, we call our Southern region basically the SEC states is what I call it.
There you go.
It's kind of easier to visualize for a lot of us football fans. It's basically, our Atlanta office all the way over here to Dallas. We have a Houston, Austin, and everything in between is what our Southern region entails. Kevin, you know this. Our CEO and COO sit here in Dallas. Our C-suite is kind of growing, and it's almost like a new headquarters. McCarthy Building Companies, is headquartered in St. Louis. Genuine McCarthy Holdings, the parent company, is headquartered in Dallas, to be technical.
Yeah.
But our regional president is here, and our business unit leader is here, and we have high expectations for who we want to be and how big we expect to be, and it's fun being on the front end of that and helping our team figure that out.
Well, and y'all came off the top ropes with your new office. I remember going to that open house, and it was, imagine the YCC.
Mm-hmm.
When because of the earlier comment, there's so many good people there. I shut the place down. It's just, there was endless conversations just with really cool people. But man, the finish out of that office, my goodness.
Yeah, shout out to Inc. and Oro, one of the 5G companies. They did great. And come up to Richardson anytime. I know it's not the easiest place to get to for some folks, but so many of our people live north anyway in Dallas. And so it makes sense for a lot of our folks that come to the office every day. It's 43,000 square feet. We've been there for 9 months, and we're already looking at adding more square footage.
Really?
Which is nuts.
Wow.
I know.
Where are y'all in Richardson?
City Line.
Yeah.
Not too far from State Farm. I see State Farm right off my office.
Hmm.
So yeah, we are, every time we get a new office, this is a race today. Our CEO said this the other day. We are batting 1,000% within 12 months of moving into a new office of already trying to expand. So I don't know that that's a good thing.
I don't know if that's a good thing. It feels like that might be a planning problem.
Planning that, but yeah.
Does that building have more lease space?
It does.
Yeah.
It does.
At least you wouldn't have to up and move because that place is beautiful.
Yeah, we're not doing that. That's for sure.
What's
we don't need to do that.
What's the journey to BD? Did you pick it or did it pick you?
It picked me. And what's funny is this is another kind of fun anecdote to throw back to my early days at McCarthy. I got put on a PIP my second or third year at McCarthy. I was an estimator for almost 5 years, which is an entry-level position title at McCarthy. And
stop down. I know what a PIP is, but explain what that is.
Performance Improvement Plan, which is basically a 90-day period for you to either shape up or ship out. Right? And it kind of hit me a little bit by surprise, which that's probably a poor reflection of me, but it's also a poor reflection of our leadership. If that's the first time you're getting that kind of feedback is when you're getting, a PIP. But anyways, during that conversation, I'll never forget it. I was talking to my boss at the time and I said, I might be better suited for something like BD. And he said, yeah, that's not going to happen. Like he might have laughed even. He's like, yeah, you're not going to be in BD. Which obviously, in hindsight had a lot to do with the disconnection that we had at the time. But man, did I learn a lot during that time about what kind of leader I didn't want to be from that group. And it's usually just like we said, when hardships come your way, you learn more about that yourself and everything else around you when you go through that kind of stuff. But
possibly if you lean into it.
Yeah, that's true. And if you don't, then you're just going to be a sad snail.
Yeah.
Sad snail.
Sad snail.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So anyways, that BD journey didn't happen until I was asked about 2 years ago by my boss at the time to focus on BD full time. There was a little bit of succession planning involved with that.
Yeah.
And I said, look, man, I'd never really, other than that one time on the PIP, consider doing BD full time because I love doing BD as a part of pre-construction. But if you want me to do this and this is what's best for the business, I'm a McCarthy guy. I want to retire here. Then hell yeah, let's do it. I'll figure that out. This is probably a good opportunity to learn some new skills and be further front on the front lines of the business, if you will, and be even more involved with the strategy and business planning. And sure, let's do it. And I'll be honest, it's taken a little bit to embrace that role. It's definitely an art, like we talk about. We're really big on processes and procedures at McCarthy, hence the Operation Excellent piece. We want everyone to be successful, especially our trade partners. But the manual for how to be a BD guru is really thin.
Yeah.
And it's an art, like we said, but it's definitely a skill that can be developed.
It's a combination of hustle and patience, right? Like you need to go hustle, but you got to garden a little bit. That hustling is just nurturing relationships, building new ones, being genuine, all that sort of stuff. So it's a kind of a dichotomy. You got to hustle your butt off, but you also got to, it's a relationship business out here in Texas construction. You gotta earn some trust out there, and people need to figure out what you stand for. And that doesn't take one breakfast and then all of a sudden you're my guy.
That's right.
From here on out.
And
go ahead.
From pre-construction, you've got deadlines, you've got things that you're working on. You go home at the end of the day, you're like, yes, we turned this in. Yes, I got this bid from so-and-so. And, there's tangible things that you feel like you got accomplished that day. Sometimes in the BD world, that takes time. We're not ringing the bell, meaning we're winning work every day. Sure, you might have a meeting, a good lunch, a productive thing that you learned a lot. We'll talk about the war of information out there and being the first one to kind of understand what's going on in this town because there's so much going on. But yeah, sometimes it's hard to come home at the end of the day and be like, I really changed the world today.
Yeah.
What did you even, like I struggled with that as a lawyer. Sometimes I come home and I'm like, what did I even do today?
Yes. Of course.
And I'm like, man, I know. I woke up early and I hustled and I worked all day long. I know I did it, but what'd I do? And it's that, I'm sure it's similar. It's like, man, I talked on the phone and and I did this and I thought about that. And then I went home and I don't know.
Well, whether that was intentional or you really teed us up on this. It's what we all do as leaders. You pour into people and you offer value any way you can and you connect people, the best that you can. You serve. And that, I think that's the whole audience here listening that's what we do. That's why we tune in. That's why we support each other is you pour into each other.
Yeah. Don't focus on the bell. Make the bell ring the byproduct of just, and you have it in your notes. So I don't want to steal some of the things, but pouring into people, like you said.
How much of the process or management or execution of BD involves doing back of the napkin free con, talking through problems, helping people solve them before they even know they exist? Like, is that a component part of it?
For sure. And not enough. That's the part I live for. One of my favorite parts is just kind of talking through high level napkin sketches and what could this vision be? And, have you thought about this? And I know someone in the design world that could really be a good part of this team. Let's just go ahead and have a lunch or get something together.
That was, when I was, I wear a BD hat as a lawyer, and that was always like my favorite part was to identify like what's the thing you're struggling with, and you like just let people start talking like, man, I don't know how to figure out whatever. 99 times out of 100, I can't fix it. 99 times out of 100, it's like, oh, I know if that's the thing you're trying to get designed, I know an architect who can like crush that for you. But let's go meet. That's sort of like super connector. This is a trust building exercise, being a super connector, having expertise in the industry, all the things coming together and being able to leverage it in and out of the right spaces.
That's obviously, the BD minimum for sure. You got to be able to do that. But if you can add a little more substance or value on top of that to kind of think what you're alluding to, Stewart, with the napkin sketches is like, well, if you have this 12 years of pre-con, which I'm blessed and fortunate to have, then you can do a little bit of the roulette with them right then and there. And I think that's always appreciated.
Yeah.
It's just like, okay, you are a little bit more than just the face.
Yeah. You get to be a thought partner. Like, help me think that through. Well, have you thought about that?
And knowing your clients and knowing your client's business, thinking more than just like, how do I win this project, right? No, I want to be a trusted partner to this person for years. And how can I help them be better business people? And that's today become more the bare minimum.
Yeah.
Like we're all out there thinking about that. Well, then what's next? And how do we get into, once this asset is designed and built, what does that look like for the next 50 years? And how do we help that, improve that? So we're not just handing over an O&M manual and just walking away. So
Yeah, because a client's still a client after the bell rings and you're in, even though it goes from pre-con to operations, like, are you nurturing it when they don't have a next job?
That's right.
You know,
That's
like, they get to
important.
figure that out.
They know real quick.
We've all figured that out. Like, people disappear when you switch companies. You're like, oh, that friendship wasn't genuine. I'm kind of surprised.
Yep.
Yeah.
Or you switch from, I mean, in your position, I wonder if you face that. Like, you and I technically have no reason to talk when you switch from pre-con to business development, to be quite honest.
Yeah,
you know,
totally.
is this friendship real?
Absolutely.
You know, and I'm sure you figured that out when who was real and who wasn't when you switched.
The best relationships are done under contracts and when there's nothing else going on.
Yeah.
Like you were saying, it's when you have no carrot dangling in front of you that you're really out there trying to just add value and be someone to something, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are some of the don'ts? We covered a lot of the do's.
I want to hang on a do though. I got a question because you said know your clients. What do you mean by that? Say more about that.
Yeah, sure. I mean, an easy example would be a healthcare client and who, you know, cooks children's health, right? Pediatric. Okay, great. They serve kids, but who else do they serve beyond that? Is it, you know, the nurses in a lot of ways are healthcare systems clients. Now, the nurses aren't paying to be there, but man, it's critical that the nurses want to work at that healthcare system. So let's make sure we're taking care of the nurses. Or I don't know. That's just one small example, but it's knowing a business. If it's a mission critical client, right? They're developing a data center. They obviously are leasing space out to brand names a lot of times, the Sonys, the Amazons, whatever. What's important to Sony and Amazon so that I can help the data center developer be a better business partner to them? It's not just about this relationship up the food chain. It's the whole thing.
Yeah.
That's really what I meant about that.
Yeah, and some of that stuff, it's like being a good basketball referee is if you're doing your job really well, nobody knows you're doing it.
Yeah.
And knowing that exists and knowing able to say like, okay, I know you're not thinking about the value that you add to your nurses, but I can think about how we can put something in there that unwittingly or unknowingly adds value to them, which in turn allows you to retain them, which in turn brings happy, blah, blah, blah. Like that's 4-dimensional chess, man. Like that is next. If you're thinking like what's next,
Reach up. That's right.
This is it. So that's good. I'm glad I asked that question because I didn't actually know what you meant, but got us into a spot.
Well, ask all the questions you want, Stuart.
Thanks. I appreciate that. Man. Yeah. I think I will ask some more questions today. But I don't know which one's next. Oh, what were you going to say? Don'ts. We did do's. What about a don't?
Yeah, the don'ts.
I got a hot take on that, on a don't.
And I got a question. What's your hot take?
Nice.
Man, question of the day.
Nice.
Well done.
Nailed it.
Back pat gif.
Yes. Have you seen that one?
That up first time.
It's like a lady who has a little machine that she pats her own back with it. Have you seen this one?
No, but I need one of those.
That's Stewie's fuel tank.
Yeah,
oh my gosh.
So just affirm him and
it's all
he'll
good.
say this was the best episode we've ever done.
Yeah, for sure. And I hate you for knowing that.
Nothing like knowing your partner, right? Hot take is don't network just for the sake of networking. And it's an easy thing to do, especially if your title or role is focused on business development, because you could go, especially in this geography, the Metroplex, there's so much going on. You could go out and fill your calendar with a million things to do and feel like I'm meeting so many people. But unless you're really being intentional about strategizing who you're meeting with and where you want to meet them and what you're going to talk about and how you're going to add value to them, you're not going to get a lot of leads. You're not going to get a lot of opportunities. It's just kind of, you're wearing yourself out. And for upper level folks that don't focus on BD full time, this is a no brainer. I mean, your time is valuable. Not that BD folks' time isn't valuable, definitely is, but you got to be really intentional with how you spend your time. And I think we get too caught up sometimes in just like networking events. And, I love a good biz now, but sometimes those are just like, man, wear you out and you're not really being effective with what you're doing.
Yeah.
So you got to be intentional. I find I color code my calendar based on internal events, they're red, external events, industry type stuff, blue, personal stuff, kids, whatever, green. And if I don't have my calendar at least 60% blue on external stuff, that's not good. I know that I'm not doing a good enough balance of that. And sometimes we get proposals in house and we're head down trying to get those proposals done, and that's okay. But I got to be intentional like 2 or 3 weeks out of getting my calendar blue. Otherwise, people are going to fill it up.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So
we have a mutual friend that was, you're going to know who I'm talking about, was a director of sales and newish to the market, and we were becoming friends. And I saw a high value target type of meeting or event that he should go to. And so I called him. I'm like, hey, dude, you need to come to this. Like, this would be a good one for you. It's a force multiplier. Like, to your point, this is a blue with double asterisks. And he's like, I can't, man. I'm handcuffed to my desk. I'm like, you're a director of sales, bro. I don't think you're supposed to be handcuffed to your desk. And, yeah. And then he's no longer there. You know, so you got to fill it with the blue, man.
No doubt.
And the right blue. Because even externally, man, there's a million things. And are you going so you show up on LinkedIn and are a part of a picture and can say I was there? Or are you trying to create value? Learn maybe, because those biz nows, those are a lot of things that are talked about I don't know about. You know, so like,
there's definitely
maybe it's a knowledge thing, but like do the right ones.
There's some secondary gains from some of that networking just for the sake of networking stuff. But overall, man, you got to have a strategy. You got to have a concentric circles of your target and who are the people that know these people that I want to get to know really well, and how can I get to know them? And outside of that, man, it's all just noise.
Yeah.
Two ideas. What is it I used to do? I used to do 2 and only give 1.
Correct.
Okay, so I got 3 ideas.
Oh, okay.
I won't ever figure them out. I was thinking BizNow is like golf. Is like you're not usually like hitting good shots, but every once in a while you'll hit a go, and you'll be like, well, maybe I should
keep coming back.
Maybe I should do this more. You know,
that's a good point.
But on the whole, like for the most part, it's in the woods. You know, but what were you gonna say?
It would be the closing comment right at the end is like, you made par on 18. You're like, oh, I thought I hated the sport.
Yeah.
Now I got to come back again and play again.
Yeah, it was worth it, I guess.
I got one nugget.
Yeah. I don't know if that's a shot at or a praise to BizNow. I can't figure out exactly what that was.
Well, BizNow, deal with it.
Yeah. They're big. The BizNow crew, they're big listeners.
They might be because of him now.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And then
I'm
off
sure.
right now.
Yeah. This is the end of the BizNow section, so y'all can tune out now. With respect to like that target and knowing who's in the bullseye and stuff like this, is this from an execution perspective? Is this just rumbling around in your head, or is there actually like a bullseye on the wall?
This is a product of a team of people talking months and months of planning. So we talked about, the Matt Schrodels of the world, and even beyond that, we have a lot of focus on business planning that is 12, 24, 48, and even beyond months. Who are the clients that we currently are working with? Okay, great. That's going to represent about 80% of our revenue if we can. Who are the next 20% going to be? Let's go figure out the next 3 or 4 or 5, or depending on where we are at, of who that 20% is going to make up. How do we do that? And what is the makeup of the ideal characteristics of a McCarthy client? And let's talk about that. Do they allow self-perform? Do they want to be partners long-term? Do they just look at us as commodities? Do they just buy low? Do they hard bid exclusively? Are they open to other progressive delivery methods? I don't want to come across this as maybe this might sound a little cocky or something, but we want Nordstrom buyers.
Yeah.
Right? Like, we have a particular profile of who we want to work with. And that's not just our owners, it's our designers and trade partners. It's all of that. So it's just being, again, protectful and intentional.
Yeah. So there's a collaborative, long-term, vision-based
big time
intent. Yeah. Like, I mean, I've been involved in those conversations. They're like, let's figure it out. And 10 minutes, everybody's like, oh, well, on their phone. And you're like, okay, we're not focusing on this. We're not paying, and sometimes it's like, no, I would always say, like, let's put one name on the wall, literally, like, and just anytime somebody thinks about that, come in here, write something beside it. We'll begin to put together this like mind map of how we go conquer that particular effort and put it, and it is an elongated exercise. And obviously from my perspective, it's such like a dumb thing to say. It's not obvious.
Refer back to the GIF.
Yeah, it's not my perspective. Anyway, that was one of the dumbest things I've ever said. Anyway, is like the ones that you focus on, shockingly, they're a little more successful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you pour a lot of resources into it. That's for sure. And if you aren't successful, that sucks.
Yeah.
But our hit rate's up to about 60% across the country now, which is good.
That's silly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's the way you kind of want that 80-20 existing client to new client ratio, at least for us, that makes a lot of sense for us.
If you want Nordstrom buyers, how do you be Nordstrom?
It's a great question, Stewart.
Thanks. That's my 8th great question today.
Because I can't go out there and just say like, oh, we're better than everyone else. That's absolutely not the truth. There's a lot of great contractors in this market. Hell, everyone's here too, right? If you're any size GC, you've got a company here or an office here in Dallas, Fort Worth. I would say our value proposition is very unique from the self-perform design phase service standpoint. And Kevo, you've experienced a little bit of this in your trade partner part of your life, but we take care of you. We take care of everyone. We take care of our own. I think a lot of that has to do with our employee ownership, 100% employee owned. And again, it kind of comes back to that A&M reference where it's just like, it's hard to explain from the inside out unless you're experiencing it with us and bringing it along and learning along the way.
Yeah, I get that.
I mean, it's people.
Yeah.
Right. Everyone's going to say they're people, but it's the truth.
Well, everybody says they're people, but you can tell which ones mean it and which ones say it. And so it's a common thing to say, but it's not a common thing to do.
Yeah.
So I get
easy
that.
to say, but once you experience it, I think you kind of get a feel for it.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
You were ready for all that. Let me be clear to listeners from the beginning. You had that in the bag.
Yeah.
But the reason why it was a stretch goal is I think this hard right turn we're about to take.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to say
Hard right,
Remodeled
let's
Man.
go.
That's all I'm going to do to tee it up. You know, why are we sitting here for this hard right turn? What's going on?
Well, I got divorced 3 years ago, and that's not something people put on their vision board very often. They certainly don't say it in their vows. They say till death do you apart. And that's something that I live with every day. And everyone who's been through divorce, kind of wears on their heart. But for me, it is, again, one of those things that, boy, did I learn so much and grow so much. And I still am. And I think, just a nod to you guys here. This is in Mountain Movers and what you're doing, Kevin, every day is an inspiration for people like me to come out and talk about this stuff, right? It's an epidemic in the West, especially in this country. Unfortunately, I don't know what the real stats are, but we talk loosely like it's half of marriages end up in divorce, right? I mean, that's a lot of people out there that have been through this, and a lot of folks get remarried, and I will likely be one of them. But during that time, right, and I'm very blessed that Erica, my co-parent, is an awesome woman. I'd still love her to death. Great person. And no two marriages are the same. No two divorces are the same. But if I had to draw this up to go the way I would want it to go, it was pretty close to how it's gone with Erica. Great way. It was fast. I wouldn't say it was entirely equitable, but who's to decide what's an equitable thing? As long as the kids are good.
Yeah.
And at least as good as they can be. And we were both on the same page with that. And that's not always the case, right? No. We could all think of people, probably multiple people, who haven't had that experience. And so I was in a really good emotional state. I was kind of checked out toward the end of the marriage anyway, which is not good. Not proud of that. But I was in a good state to say, I'm ready for whatever's next. I don't know what's next, but whatever's next, I'm going to be ready for it. I'm going to use this time to make lemonade out of lemons, if you will, for bad cliche.
Yeah.
Right? But you get a lot more time on your hands, especially if you're a parent that's used to coming home every day and helping raise kids. I have my kids about half the time. And so when I don't have the kids, I'm going to use that time. We talked about the 168 hours of a week earlier to be productive. I'm not going to wallow in whatever's going on and emotions that are going on. I'm not going to sit on the couch eating Cheetos. I'm not going to play video games. I'm not going to do any of that stuff. This is an opportunity for me. And one of my biggest goals, and I talk about this with my Remodeled Man clients, whatever you have put off in your life, bucket list. If you don't have a bucket list, make a bucket list, but hopefully you have some form of a bucket list or goals. Now's the time to get on it. Find some things that get you excited and start planning those things. And so for me, one of those things was starting a business. And for 34 years, I never really knew what that business would be. I didn't really think construction would be the right fit because I love my day job. I love construction. Like I said earlier, would love to retire at McCarthy if possible. So not sure what that was going to be, but when I had enough time in the gym and doing all these journaling and meditation and all these things that I was just trying to cultivate in my life during that, those first 6 months of being separated and ultimately divorced, it came to me. And a lot of that also has to do with spiritual life. I'm kind of going all over the place here.
No, you're doing great.
I got baptized this year, and that had a lot to do with Remodeled Man as well. So Remodeled Man is a self-improvement consulting business for divorced men. It's pretty much life coaching, but I don't brand it as a life coach business. I brand it as self-improvement consulting because if the guys aren't ready to do the hard work, and some of them aren't, they're not emotionally there yet on their recovery or whatever. But if they're not ready to put in the work themselves, I'm not going to waste my time. I'm not going to waste their time. But we're there to make sure that they can expedite their recovery and get to a better part in their life than they've maybe ever been.
Yeah.
Faster than they would on their own. And so I use my own experience going through divorce, and we talk about 168 hours. We talk about bucket lists. Hot take here. I try to get them going on dates as soon as they can go on dates without like crying. And why I do that and why I recommend that for really anyone, females too, is it helps your brain understand there's abundance out there in life. And it's not just about your traumas, and you're going to have some of that. No doubt, we're humans. But man, there's so much out there, and you don't have to do anything on a date other than just get to know some people and talk to people and understand like, hey, there's a lot of fish in the sea, of course. but that's part of this recovery, thing. And I'm not a therapist. I don't want to be a therapist. That's for sure. But I can be a role model. I know that. And I know I can help these people, these guys, go through a tough time in their lives. And some of these guys don't have a lot of friends that can relate to them like that, And I think it helps to have a stranger a little bit, because some of our close friends that are divorced, you want to be there for them. It can be awkward. I think especially for the couple friends.
I was just about to say, like in this phase of our of life, I've heard the friends say like, well, when they got a divorce, we had to pick. Were we going to be friends with the wife, or were we going to be friends with the husband? And it's like, so I bet those relationships, you may know, I mean, your experience may dictate this. Is like, those friends begin to pull away. It's like, I can't, we can't navigate this. I don't know what to do,
And it takes a lot of self-strength a little bit too, right? And I think that's one of the bigger things that you got to teach these guys. I focus on 3 different things. It's mindset, first and foremost, which is, again, it's an internal choice every day and every minute of the day to choose what your thoughts are. And that's tough. You remember one of my goals from maybe 2 years ago. It was not a very clearly defined goal, but it was around having like an unbreakable mind. And how do you check that off a goal list? I don't think you ever do, but you can certainly actively do things that help you build a tough mind. And I think as men, that's our responsibility. We got to be the rocks for our families, and it starts with you, man. So mindset's really important first, no matter where these guys are on the recovery.
Coming back to that, say it again. You have to be a rock, and it starts with you, man.
It starts with you.
To that like laid in kind of soft, but that hits hard. You know what I mean?
It sure does.
Well, and tough doesn't mean you got to take this on your own. And I think that's where a lot of men, including me for many years, get it wrong. Tough does not mean I got to suppress my emotions. Tough does not mean I can't be vulnerable. Tough is being vulnerable. Tough is sharing your story. And you see divorce rock people, and they're never going to get back to where they were, but maybe they get better. And you don't know how long that season's going to take, because all of us have seen many people walk through it at this point. Like, it rocks them, and you try to be there for them. But if they can't talk to somebody that can relate, like I can't relate, as much as I love you and care about you, I can't relate to what you're going through. I can't relate to when you tell me like nobody's going to be interested in me because I have kids. I know it's a lie, but I can't relate.
Well, especially with that attitude.
mindset. Mindset. But we struggle, men to this day struggle so heavily with vulnerability. And you're walking it, each time this is going to be a force multiplier even for you. Like, you've been talking about it more and more, but now a bunch of people are going to know. And it's less of a weight off your shoulders, less of a weight. And that's why we need to be in peer groups. That's why you need this remodeled man if you're walking through this, because it helps shape you. It makes you tougher. Like, know your definition of tough.
Couldn't say it better, man. And there's one big regret that I would say, I don't have regrets, maybe. That's not the right word. But there's one thing I would have done differently toward the end of my marriage. It would have absolutely been starting sooner with couples therapy. Because that's the pride thing that I think you're talking about. It's tough for us men to maybe be like, oh, I don't have problems. I can handle my own problems.
Mm-hmm.
But no, man, like, there's nothing bad that comes out of talking to people about what you got going on. And if you can get yourself to do it, you'll be thankful you did. You may not agree with whoever you're talking to. That's fine. You can work with your spouse or even as an individual to find someone you like. But man, it's powerful, and you'll grow from it.
Well, part of that idea is continuing to talk about going to therapy and getting help or talking to someone and all that is breaking down the talking about it begins to continues to break down the stigma of it, which then blah, blah, blah. Right. So, cause I'm a little older than both of you guys, but I can remember being a kid and you would hear about someone who was seeing a counselor or seeing a site, whatever. And you would, like they completely lost their mind. Right. And
well, parents' generation absolutely still.
Oh, yeah,
totally.
For sure. And so the more we talk about it, the more we have these conversations, the more we demonstrate vulnerability, the more we break down the stigma, and the better we all are for it. So anyway, I don't know exactly where I'm going with that other than saying, like, just having this conversation is helping, even if it is merely to break down the stigma, which I know it is more than that, but even if it's merely for that, we're moving the needle just by talking about it,
No doubt. And so I'm looking to be more of a peer and a role model for these guys, not a therapist, that's for sure. The second aspect that is a big component of the Remodeled Man and the program that we bring is fitness. And fitness is great. We all talk about how important it is to be healthy, eat healthy, all that stuff, right? Because it's more than just your physical fitness. It's your mental fitness. It's creating good habits. It's a discipline. You talk about it all the time in the Mountain Mover Manual with all the other aspects of life that get impacted. Man, the mental part and the fitness go together hand in hand. The mindset and the discipline that gets forged in the iron lab, that's what's up.
Yep. And
if you can start getting there, even if it's just 2 minutes a day at first, right? We talk about this too. That helps momentum for wherever you're at, no matter who you are, but especially these guys going through this thing in their life. The last part is the dating aspect, and that's probably for a different episode, but that's definitely a component of just, again, it comes back to mindset too, understanding the abundance that life has to offer out there, not just of the opposite gender, but just I can have fun again. I can go out there and make time to be a man and embrace my masculinity and be okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
And I definitely am very cautious and very intentful with teaching these guys about getting back into dating.
Yeah. You start in the beginning it's a common theme throughout your story and your testimony, but you know, the whole oxygen mask thing, when they announce it on the plane, you're supposed to put it on yourself first before the kids. And there's a little twist to this with yours. You put on your oxygen mask and you're like, okay, I'm going to strip myself down to the bones, figure out how I could get better for you, right? Like you should. And then it unlocked this opportunity to help others. But again, to the tough comment earlier, you didn't do that in isolation. You weren't the only one on the airplane with an oxygen mask. You pulled in your close inner circle to work through this season before you talked to the masses, right? Like, and that might even be a misstep for me because I was so shameful of my mountains in my life that I was like, nobody can figure this out. And then like the retreat last year for our peer group was probably my first take where I started opening a door of like, this is how bad it was, you know, which lessens its power over time. But like you should put on your oxygen mask and work on yourself, but you should also talk to somebody. Get it out of your head. More than a journal. Somebody. There's somebody in your life, whether you know them or don't, that you could talk to help. And if divorce isn't your jam, you have something. You have a weight on your shoulders right now while you're listening. Get it out of your head.
Yeah.
And so while you're working on yourself, you don't have to suppress that. You don't have to say, I need to be perfect, or that's a terrible word, but I need to be completely renewed before I could start talking about that. No.
Well, find your tribe.
Yeah.
Right, Kevin? That's it.
Sounds familiar.
Who says that? Somebody says that. Is it
some bald idiot?
That'll come to me.
So I was able to launch my Instagram like this week as a preparation for this, which again was just more of a, hey, let's just go ahead and do this already. But it was interesting. A former I didn't play college ball, high school basketball teammate of mine, hadn't talked to this guy in maybe 15 years, found me already, says, hey man, it's been a while. I'm going through my second divorce at 37. And just want to talk to you about this and see what's going on. Which is crazy, right? But man, it's wild how many people that are out there that go through this. You didn't, second divorce in that amount of time, and it's a thing.
This is twice you've been talking. I got goosebumps or whatever. I did then too, because that story has like three pieces that are coming zooming in at me. But the one that hit me like the hardest was the idea that this was a dude you used to hoop with. And there's something to that. Like, why do we do sports? Because you built a bond with that dude, I don't know, 20 years ago that transcended losing contact with him. It transcended where you were physically and formed that opportunity to 20 years later or 15 years later pop in and help. And why do we do it? Why do we put our kids on this race to nowhere, so to speak? Because it's not to nowhere, right?
And you may not know it until 20 years later, but that's right. Exactly right, Stewart. And so the first thing I'm going to talk to this guy about is, you got to approach this, whatever. I mean, we're going to have a strategy session. We've scheduled it for next week. That's the first thing I do with any of these guys, just kind of vet it and make sure that I'm a good fit for them and vice versa. But look back and try to look at this glass half full, brother. Like, what have you learned? And don't put any fault on anyone, including yourself, but especially not your ex. Like, that's how this vicious cycle of negativity goes. Is like, man, at one point you love that woman more than anything. And so thank her, even if you don't say it to her yet. Eventually maybe you'll get there. But in your heart, thank her for everything that you guys did together.
Yeah. Let me add to that, because I think that's an amazing way to reset the idea for that dude who is going through or is divorced. But everybody who's married, stop down and think about that, right? Because that moment existed. That moment exists. And oftentimes you've forgotten about it, right? And I have this wonderful, Ashley's going to die when I tell this story. At our house, I ripped out a closet a long time ago and put all of our switches and network gear and all this we call it our nerd closet, right? My CD case from when I was in high school is in there with my Pearl Jam CDs and
Hell
stuff.
Yeah. I got one of those.
Yeah. So this is what's in that closet. But what's also in that closet is my, I want to say voicemail machine. That's not what it's called. You know how you used to have a physical box and people call and you go home and you have to...
Yeah, your message machine.
Yeah, whatever that
Answering machine.
Answering machine. There it is. Dude, we are so old.
I got all the words. Me and fish.
Yeah, you guys...
There's the fish reference. I figured it out.
We got that one wedged in there. Anyway, in that closet is my old answering machine. And on that old answering machine are 2 voicemails that Ashley left me when we first started dating. And I go back and listen to them every once in a while because it's just it reminds me of those days, right? And those days exist for everybody. So
man, that's awesome.
To come back to the point is stop down and think about it right now. Because that's what a great... Anyway, I'll shut up now.
Go listen to those messages tonight, man.
Right?
Pull it out for her.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
So anyway, everybody has that story. So anyway, I'll give it back to you. Sorry I stole it from you.
No, I thought that was a great way to put icing on that cake, baby.
I just grabbed my phone and followed it. Remodeled Man, at Remodeled Man. How else? I know you launched the site, right?
At Remodeled Man, yeah. And that is
it new?
www.remodeledman.com. Here, I should probably give you these flyers so you kind of know a little bit more what you're getting into here.
I'm just going to throw it on the dining room table. Sadie's gonna be like,
Happy birthday, babe.
I got you something.
yeah, I'm gonna get remodeled.
Yeah, you're the last guy that needs that, dude.
Yeah. At remodeledman.com. Info at remodeledman.com. Yep, I butchered that.
I'll ask to close this up before the one thing. How much has this helped in your healing journey now? Because you're post-oxygen mask, and we're never through helping ourselves with self-improvement. That's an endless game. But like, how much easier is it getting to talk through? How much more exciting is it getting driving you towards a purpose? Like,
That's a good question.
Well, every time I talk to these guys, man, even if they don't ultimately become clients, like they're still people you want to just pour into, and that's what's up.
Dopamine.
It's certainly not. Yeah, it is. It's certainly not for money. That's for sure. Like this is all about just pouring into your purpose and just, God put this journey on my life one way or another, and I have a lot to own around that, but let's use that for good. And so every time I get a chance to talk to some of these guys, that it's a big deal.
Yeah.
Dude, give me a soundbite here, because I know I kind of butchered it's your Insta, your website, your contact info. Give me like a little clip here on how to get in touch with you.
Yeah, so Instagram is fresh. You're not going to see a ton on there, but the way to get a hold of me is through Instagram at Remodeled Man. And the website's very similar, www.remodeledman.com. There it is.
Yeah, hit them up.
Beat them up.
I feel like we're about to break out in a rap song.
Just some Tupac lay down.
Yeah, or some Space Jam.
Space Jam.
Get them high, get them high.
I'm leaving. If we're doing Space Jam, I'm leaving. Sorry.
I never watched the LeBron one. I refuse to.
Right.
No.
It's all right.
It was I.
I got kids, right? So they wanted to watch it.
That makes sense.
But it's all right.
You didn't watch it by yourself.
Maybe I did.
Again, MJ better than LeBron.
Yeah, that's a hard one.
Just again.
Did you guys see what he said the other day? This was like 2 days ago. Best point guard ever.
Who he?
He texted Jordan. Jordan texted Stephen A. Smith. Stephen A. Smith read this on air and was like, "There's a lengthy text message, so go look it up." But I thought it was pretty cool from the go, talking about
The best point guard ever?
Magic Johnson is the best point guard ever. Okay, Steph Curry is the best shooter ever. There's a lot more to it, but that's what he was trying to clear up. And anytime Jordan says something, guys like us and our generation are like, yeah, Jordan.
Gospel.
Yeah, he said it. He said it. It's right.
Yeah. There was a bit, Family Feud. They said, I think it was who's the best basketball player of all time. And the opening siren or horn, whatever it is, first lady goes, LeBron James. She led off with LeBron James. He was third with 7 votes. And Michael Jordan was obviously number 1 with 56 votes. So the case is closed.
Well,
Family
who's
Feud
2?
closed. The
Kobe.
bit doesn't go.
I don't know. It's got
Probably Kobe.
right now, for sure. I mean, if you want to be a stat geek, you can talk about Wilt or some of that. But most people now would say Kobe, I think. Especially, again, when you die, your legacy.
Yeah, Family Feud isn't interviewing people at the mall that are basketball historians.
That's
They're
fair.
thinking of like.
What name do I know?
Yeah, helicopter. Kobe.
Oh, no. Too soon. It's too soon. You can't.
Oh,
What
can't
game show would you most want to go on?
Oh, that's super easy and ironic. It would be Family Feud. We watch it every
That's awesome.
night and laugh. And Steve Harvey is so
He's
funny.
money. He's coming to Choctaw. Saw that on the freeway.
Come
really?
on. Let's go. Can we go? I mean,
I'm down.
All right, there we go.
That's one of the better names I see go there.
I can't think of what I would. Probably that one. What would be an absolute torture chamber would be Jeopardy. Have you ever watched
it's a humbling.
You're different because you could probably get half them right.
Smart.
Yeah, out of the 2 rounds, I maybe get 1 or 2 right.
I hustle on that. My mom, again, I forgot what mom references here.
Your mom.
My mama. She has it on religiously. And so
The Jeopardy?
Yeah, the Jeopardy. She's a trivia nut, but it wouldn't be my choice. I think it's a great show. Definitely humbling.
Oh.
Depends on what categories you toss. I mean, I do love some Jeopardy. And every once in a week, the kid will be like, "How do you know all that?" I'm like, "I took a class on it once." Like, there's a category in Double Jeopardy on the Bible one time.
Ooh.
Murdered. I murdered the Bible category. I was like, "Yeah, boy,
Sound the
Testament, New
trumpets.
Testament, you got it.
got it." Yeah.
Mine's Price is Right. I'd be Price is Right.
Oh, that's a
Bob
good-
Barker would have been best,
Yeah,
Drew
even Drew
Carey is like,
Carey's-
he's all right too, right? I mean,
I'm over The Price is Wrong, Bob.
Yeah, in his
Price
last
is
5 years, where
Man.
he's very impatient. Like you're thinking, he's like, "Come on already, pick." Did you see those?
No.
Oh, it's so good. He's just had it with people, and he's just like, "Sometime today, Sally, like spin the freaking wheel."
the other
That's
night,
entertainment.
we love game show. Well, I love game shows. I don't know if my family does or not, but The Price is Right was on in the evening, and they had like the biggest losers. They had come on and just butchered a game. That was who the contestants were.
The worst of.
Yes,
That's
and
so
so when you would win and come on up, then they would play the clip of you just botching it the prior time. It was awesome.
That's great.
It was a dude on Plinko who got like none of the chips, and then the one that he got for free went on 0 or something. And you're just like, oh my gosh, it's terrible, man. So bad. Kevin's face just turned. He's like, Kevin just gave us the body language of like, I'm done with this conversation.
that too.
I'm completely checked out. No,
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. I was gonna pull it back.
Oh,
This guy always pulling it
I know,
back.
dude. It's just I got to grab Stewie out of the ditch every single
Trying to have
episode.
fun, yeah. All right.
5,000 topics talked about. We got one thing. Like,
Yeah.
what's the closing nugget for the listeners?
I've got a quote that hangs out in our VP of Ops office. His name's Dennis, and it's excuses or results. You can't have both. I don't think that's earth shattering, but especially for a Remodeled Man and really any time that you've got a decision to make, I think that could be something that you really use as a kind of internal sounding board, man, because you can't have both. And the other thing I want to do, leave a book rec. Obviously, if you haven't left a 5-star review on Amazon for Kevin's book, do that. The book I really want to recommend is The 7 Principles for Making Marriage Work by John Gottman. And I just picked it up. Wish I picked it up a long time ago. But I tell you what, for all you married folks out there, and even if you're not married like myself, a lot of interesting stuff that maybe you haven't thought about on the surface when you think of what makes a successful marriage. Well, communication and lots of bedroom, whatever. This is actually a look behind, and it's scientifically proven. I use air quotes there because they talk a lot about what that means. But you'll read it and you'll be like, oh, well, that makes a lot of sense. Friendship, yeah, be best friends. I mean, obviously that does make a lot of sense. But I think it's a good read and reread to kind of keep that fresh in your mind when you're supposed to put your spouse right behind Jesus Christ.
Yeah, there you go.
Right?
Cool. Look at you. Look at you, Bishop. Good job. Proud of you, buddy.
Yeah, thanks. This has been awesome.
Thanks for doing it, man. Appreciate
Stretch goal complete.
it. Check it out. Do you have the list here? Check it off.
We're going to go ring a bell.
Do we have a bell?